What's up YouTube? Today I will be doing yet another deck profile, this one on one I've already done a profile on, but this is more of an update, and that is the Six Samurai. Now this is probably one of my favorite decks. This is definitely the one I'm most comfortable with, and I probably spent the most time checking out. It's one of the first decks I ever made. When I was first getting into Yu-Gi-Oh, I don't know, a little less than a year ago. So I figured I'd give you a profile. This is probably the one I will be using at Nationals, either this or Inzectors. I guess I'll let you guys decide. And I've got another two profiles though that I can show you that I want you guys to vote on down below. Those are Stun and Agents, both Chaos type variants. So yeah, vote on those below and I can profile those. We'll do whichever one you guys want first. Both are pretty viable, this format. I know I lost using Inzectors to Stun last weekend, but that was mostly because I drew a handful of spells. Anyway, I figure we'll get right into the profile. Remember to rate, comment, subscribe below. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. Leave feedback, suggestions, anything. And I'm going to try to keep making more videos. Anyway, into the profile. We've got triple Kizan. I feel that's obvious. If you're running Samurai, you should be running 3 of him. And since he's getting reprinted in the structure deck, he's not going to be that hard to get. We got triple Kagemusha. He won't be in the structure deck, but he's not that hard to get anyway. Double Elder. Asceticism target. I had actually knocked this down to 1 at one point, but 2 is really appropriate. 1 Grandmaster. 2 is Cloggy. I feel like I mentioned that in my other video, and I really don't want to have to deal with 2. I already have a hard time when I draw just him and then a handful of spells. 1 Anishi, great tech choice, originally made in Guadalajara, still good now. Consider dropping him sometimes just because there's other cards that I'd rather run, such as Hand of the Six Samurai. You'll notice I don't run that, just because I feel I don't need it. I want to keep the monster count low. So, anyway, moving on. We've got a Kageki, acts as an asceticism target for Anishi, and then also you use him to bring out Kagemusha, and then sync to Shien. Next we've got a Zanji. He is kind of like my Hand of the Six Samurai. I just bring him out with asceticism on a Kizan, and then run over Reaper, Jalen Duo, anything I think. I think it runs over Jalen Duo. I have to read that effect though. I would assume it does. And then Spirit of the Six Samurai, one of the best, like, underrated cards in this deck. Equip it to a Shien, he's 3k, and then he just beats over anything, and then he's like Horn of the Phantom Beast, you draw one when he destroys a card. So, really good card in my opinion. And then I tech 1 Shien Squire for dojo plays and things like that, because it can turn a hand of just Kizan and a dojo, and then no other support cards whatsoever, and make it a really good hand, just having him in the deck. You can make Shien, and then you have tons of like live traps with stuff like that. And finally, we've got Double Veiler. I know it must be surprising to see Double Veiler with Inzectors and everything like that, but I do run 3 Fiendish Chains, so this deck doesn't have a hard rabbit matchup, so having Effect Veiler in the hand all the time isn't always necessary. So that's it for monsters. I think there's 16 of them. Moving on to spells, we've got the obvious Gateway. You draw this, and if you're losing while drawing this, there's something wrong. Your hand must be awful, other than Gateway. Next we've got Double Dojo, Shien's Dojo, this is the Spanish one. Really good card in my opinion, good at 2, you don't want to run more. 3 is way too cloggy, I think 2 is sometimes too cloggy. Although you really only want this when you go off, because then you can just special summon more from your deck. Next we've got the standard 3 Asceticism. I wouldn't change that at all. 1 Rhoda, and then Double Smoke Signal. I don't know if I wish I had more targets for this in the monster lineup, which is why I want to run Hand of the Six Samurai. Just because the only targets are Kagemusha's Elder and Kageki, and once you already go off, this card isn't that live. Most of these cards just help you set up, and then after that, it's mostly about the traps, which is what I really knocked up the number of. I took out a lot of spells, and I knocked up the trap lineup, just because I felt traps were more vital in long-term games and stuff like that. Next we got Triple United, that's staple, and a Heavy and a Reborn, more stables. No Dark Hole, no Mystical Space Typhoon. I side in Mystical Space Typhoon if I'm going second. Other than that, I feel Heavy Storm does what it's supposed to. You only really need them to set up. After that, you negate all the spells and traps you have problems with. Alright, for traps, I think we've got 10 of them, so this deck's 41. A lot of Samurai guys run 42 for some reason, but I mean, it really should be around 40. We got Solemn Brigade, that's pretty much standard. Triple Fiendish Chain, I mentioned that earlier. Since I only run 2 Valor, Triple Fiendish Chain, in my opinion, is more viable. Since it stops big beaters too, it's kind of like Spellbinding Circle. Well, it's Fiendish Chain. 1 Double Edge. Somebody was telling me they didn't like this, but I just really like, because people can get over Xian with like Smashing Ground and Dark Hole. If you have this in, and then you make Naturia Beast the turn after you make Xian, your opponent really has like an impossible time coming back. So I definitely recommend running one of those. Any more than one and it gets cloggy in my opinion. 1 Safe Zone, again, with more than one it gets cloggy. I side the second if I need it. This card definitely wins games against Dino Rabbit though, and Evils and stuff like that. First game, it's better first game than it is, or yeah, first game than it is any game after that. But I do side a second regardless. I'll show you guys my side deck afterwards. 1 Mirror Force, just because people are dumb and they don't expect it, so they run into it. Only 1 Magatama. I feel I didn't need more than 1. This card isn't that good this format with Samurai, well, it's only good in Samurai, so it's not as good as you'd think. So I feel it's more of a one-of, and I feel there are better traps I can play, or other cards. And then 1 Compulsory. This could be a bottomless. I have bottomlesses, but I really feel Compulsory is more appropriate. Just for this deck has such a hard time with Zen mains if it doesn't go into Blade Armor Ninja. So I guess we'll go on to the extra deck. We got Token. So for level 5 Synchros, we've got Xian Nat Beast, and Catastor. Then level 6s we got Barkion. I'm looking for a ghost one if somebody wants to swap. Then we've got Brio. I recently picked up a gold one, you guys saw that. Black Rose, and I picked up a Scrap Dragon, so that, oh, and a Mistworm. That's the Synchro lineup. 8 Synchros. I feel like Seeds are more where this deck will go once the structure deck comes out, so I'll probably knock out Black Rose, even though it's staple, and maybe Scrap Dragon or Mistworm. I'm not quite sure. But I definitely don't go into this as often as I'd like to, or like need to, because really you only make it with Kagemusha and Grandmaster, and at that point you might even be minusing yourself, so it's not even worth going into. It's worth just fighting whatever's on the field. So yeah, that's the Synchro monsters, 8 of them I think I said. For Exceeds we've got Invoker, Levier. These are obvious I think. Levier, some people don't run, but you need it. Then we got Acid Golem, Leviathan, Utopia, Maestroke, and Utopia Ray. That should be Blade Armor Ninja. I loaned it out to my friend who was playing Samurai. So yeah, that's the deck profile. Oh, I guess we'll do side deck too, since I've got it. So we got 1 Grand Mole. You'll see why this is good in like a few minutes or seconds. Spirit Reaper, Stall. Mystical Space Typhoon. If I'm going second, I'll side this in. Dark Hole. Again, if I'm going second, I don't want him summoning Thunder King, so I'll set that up. And then this one's interesting. Double Necro Valley. In my opinion, Macrocosmos isn't as good against dragons as people say it is. Just because, really because, dragons, even if you don't draw macro early enough, it's not helpful, and that's what my problem was at the regional. And I'd much rather have this, where they can't remove for their dragons, Chaos Sorcerer, all that, because and their red MDs are no longer live, because they can't target anything in the graveyard. And when I'll side this in, I'll side out Double Edge and Anishi, so it's kind of like the same way I'd side in macro. This one is definitely more of a reactive card. Like once they set up, you can activate this and they have to find a way around it. Whereas with Macrocosmos, they can use Lila to pop it. You can still discard Effect Veiler for Necro Valley, which I like. That's not to say I also side Macro, because I do. And this works against Inzectors the same way. So I really like Necro Valley more, and I think it doesn't hurt this deck. Like, this deck doesn't have a bad Gravekeeper matchup. Finally, for the spells, we've got Double Prohibition. Really, you can call anything this format against heroes. You call Alias. They can't target for for Miracle Fusion, anything like that. You can figure out why that's live. It's good against Grapha, Hornet, all that. Then we've got Double Macro. I still run Macro just because it's more of a preventative card, but you have to draw it soon enough, whereas Necro Valley you can draw it wherever and try and then come back. The second safe zone, like I was telling you about. And then Double Bottomless, when I go first, I'll side those in. I'll side out the heavy, just because once I set up, this is protection from big monsters. And then Light Imprisoning Mirrors, because I don't want to lose to... Safe Zone's good against Dino Rabbit. Bottomlesses, I'll side in Dino Rabbit. Prohibition's Dino Rabbit. And then Light Imprisoning, where was it? What was I saying? Light Sworns, and Dragons mostly, just because those are such hard matchups for this deck. That's why I side so heavily for it. Other than that, this deck is really good against all other meta decks. It can handle windups just because I up the trap count so much. The windup decks can't handle it, and it's got so much effect negation that they can't really go off. So yeah, that's the deck profile pretty much. I want to encourage you guys to rate, comment, subscribe below. Vote on which video you want to see next. I know this one was a little longer than Inzectors. I had a little more time to talk. I really hope you guys enjoyed this. Thanks, YouTube.